What's going on, Mad Maniacs, and welcome back to Cinemad Reviews, the show here on the Mad About Disney YouTube channel where I review non-Disney movies for you guys. Today I will be reviewing the 2020 Netflix original film, The Devil All the Time, directed by Antonio Campos and based off of a book by the same name as the movie. This film has a stacked cast with Tom Holland, Bill Skarsgård, Sebastian Stan, Robert Pattinson, Riley Keough, a whole bunch of great actors and actresses in this movie. As always, I'll read you guys the synopsis so if you haven't seen it, you get an understanding of what this is going to be about. This is a spoiler-free review, so if you haven't seen the movie yet, you can continue to watch this video and you'll be good. In Knockemstiff, Ohio, and its neighboring backwoods, sinister characters converge around young Arvin Russell as he fights the evil forces that threaten him and his family. Let's start by talking about the plot, because I think that's one of the main attractions of this movie. It's based off of a very popular is relative, but a relatively well-acclaimed book of the same name, like I said, and it's a very extensive plot. It deals with a lot of characters, and that's something I'll talk about in a little bit. But there are a lot of different storylines that all seem separate but end up connecting in the end, as one might expect in a story where there's a lot of different plot lines. And I think that could be one of the main criticisms of this movie, is that there are so many plot lines that it really doesn't feel fully fleshed out completely. I think that it's a really well-written story, and overall it all does come together well in the end, but I feel like it could have been better over a longer period of time, with the ability to show a little bit more about all of these characters, because in reality there are some characters that don't feel completely fleshed out in that way. Although I am also hearing criticism that this movie is too long, and I don't think that that is a very valid criticism, because if it had been any shorter, they would have had to cut a lot out, and I think that everything is in there is necessary, and I actually could have used a little bit more. Not to say that it should have been a longer movie, because it is already pretty long at about 2 hours and 15 minutes, but I think if this had been a miniseries, it also would have been really good, but I'm not going to take too much off the movie for that. I also wanted to point out how impressive it is that this movie is able to span multiple decades and periods of time and still make it seem pretty fluidly. The transitions are relatively smooth, and never does it feel particularly jarring to switch time periods. It feels as though it's a natural progression, as if you're turning the pages of a book, flipping to a new chapter, and some time has passed. And speaking of that, this movie does feel very book-like. I'm having trouble explaining how I feel about that, but there is a narrator in this movie, which I often don't like narrators. I feel as though it takes people out of the story, and at the very beginning I was a little bit thrown off, but I feel as though the narrator was an important role to provide exposition and to fill in some little gaps that couldn't be filled by the actual things going on the screen. There are some significant jumps in time in this movie, but again, like I said, because it's based off of a book, it feels as though those are somewhat natural progressions, and there are just periods that weren't needed that you could skip over. And I think overall it did work pretty well, and I thought it was impressive how fluidly they could move from one time period to another. So now let's talk about the characters. My one criticism of the characters could be that there are so many of them. Like I said before, there's a lot going on here, and there are a ton of really great actors and actresses, but the problem is there are so many characters that not all of them get the full realized potential that they probably deserved. That being said, the performances were spectacular, with Tom Holland, Bill Skarsgård, and Riley Keough delivering some excellent performances alongside the entire rest of the cast. Everyone did a really great job, but those three were just my personal standouts. As far as the rest of the movie, it is very dark for the entire duration. At no point does it feel lighthearted in any sort of way, although I feel that fits the tone that they were going for. I don't feel as though it's lacking in any sort of way as far as tone. I think it had a consistent tone in a good way, and even though it was very dark, I thought it fit what the movie was going for. The score had one lovely riff as shown in multiple trailers. I'll play it here if I can. And I think it is a really nice musical touch that is repeated throughout the movie, sometimes in different keys, although it did seem to be coming back a lot, as if that was the only real piece of music that I picked up on, at least. I don't want to say that it was too repetitive, but it was bordering on a little too repetitive, with that being the one main score riff that they used, or leitmotif, whatever you want to call it. What makes the score so good for a movie like Star Wars is how there are multiple different leitmotifs that are recycled and reused multiple times, but because there are a variety of different ones for different situations, it doesn't really seem to be repetitive at all. One could argue that in a story like this, where everything is connected, it makes sense to have one consistent leitmotif. I just might have liked to see a little bit more variation, but I do think it worked in a lot of situations. I also do want to give a little bit of praise to the cinematography. It is a very well shot film, a very beautiful film. The cinematography was great throughout. That's just a little note I wanted to add there on the end. And without hoping I didn't ramble on for too long about this movie, I think it is a very good movie. I think everyone should check it out. But I will add that it does have some significant flaws and could have been improved in a few areas, and for that I'm going to give The Devil All the Time a 4 out of 5. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what movies you want to see me review through the rest of the year, and with that, I will see all of you Mad Maniacs in the next video.